A Lexington neighborhood say they are fed up with unsafe driving and rude behavior when school is in session. WKYT's Jessica Umbro listening to those concerns and shares what the school had to say in our top story at 11.
I've had people get out of their cars and cuss me out that were sitting in my driveway.
Stephanie Durbin says her home near Lexington Catholic High School is a hot spot for hangouts, U-turns, and general traffic chaos. She's not the only one.
Especially after a long day of work or when you need to just get something done and you're coming home, it's very frustrating when you can't find a parking spot.
Josh Moore says he doesn't live in the neighborhood, but he visits often. He says many times he can't find parking because they're taken up by people who don't live in the neighborhood. He said it gets worse during school events.
If you're going to be a larger school and provide those type of events and have a larger athletic pool and things of that nature, you kind of got to do something about the situation for parking for those said events.
Resident Stephen Terry says the issues come down to a common factor: respect.
I just think the kids need, and the parents even, need to have more respect.
In a statement to WKYT, the president of Lexington Catholic High School, Rob Rumpke, says there will be extra patrols watching the areas as the school year begins, saying in part, quote, "We are certainly concerned about reckless driving, speeding, or uncourteous driving behavior in our neighborhood. We have a tradition of working with our neighbors and neighborhood throughout history, especially when you consider that our campus is in the center of a residential neighborhood." However, members of the community have taken to social media to express their frustrations with what they say is a lack of action. One post even says, "While I appreciate the emails from Lexington Catholic saying they have sent communication to parents and students regarding this, it's just falling on deaf ears." Stephanie says as a teacher, her main concern is the nearby elementary school and the risks they face from unsafe behavior in the neighborhood.
I love our neighborhood. I love living here. It's a great community, but like I said, something is going to happen.
In Lexington, Jessica Umbro, WKYT.
Plenty more to come out of that. Of course, our team reached out to Lexington Police to see if any reports have been made in that area. They did confirm to us that they're looking into at least one complaint at the moment. The president of Lexington Catholic High School says those with concerns should call the school directly so they can monitor the situation and talk with those involved. They say this is the first incident they have heard about this year.